Hello. So I was going to do this video for Halloween, but then my internet went down. So I thought I would do it for you all, and then I went down. So now I thought, blow it, I'm just going to do the Witchy Waffle for you without attaching it to any particular Sabbat. It's in bulk next week, 1st of February, that'll do. Now, first of all, I have to make a disclaimer. I am not trying to pretend that I'm any kind of expert on witchcraft or witches. What I'm giving you now is purely my opinion, but it's my opinion that has been formed following many years of walking this path. So these opinions are basically formed from my experiences. Now, I believe that an awful lot of balderdash and piffle has been written about witchcraft and witches over the years. Unfortunately, an awful lot of it has been written by people who claim to be witches themselves. If you feel that you're drawn towards the path of the witch and you want a book to read to give you some insight and some guidance, don't go to your local bookshop and go to the occult section. Bypass the occult section and go to the science fiction and fantasy section and buy yourself a book by Terry Pratchett called Weird Sisters. It's one of the Discworld series. There's a healthy dose of Macbeth in there. It's absolutely hilarious. And the man knows his witches. He really knows what the basics and fundamentals of witchcraft is all about. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the witches of Discworld, I am a weatherwax. I am the crone, very much so. I tell it like it is. I don't stand for any nonsense. I can't be having with any of that. My friend Jillybean is an og, very definitely og. We don't have a magrat. Now, I can't really talk to you about witchcraft without first talking to you about magic. And I know there's a lot of people who really struggle with the idea that magic actually exists, which I find slightly confusing. They have this, I'll believe it when I see it attitude. You can't see air. You can see and feel the effects of air when it moves, but you can't see air itself. You can't see electricity. You can see and feel the effects of electricity, but you can't actually see electricity, and yet people are perfectly happy to accept that those things exist without being able to see them. Now, I am by inclination and training a scientist. I am rational and logical and skeptical and cynical, and yet I truly believe that magic exists. But if you are one of those who struggles to believe in magic, believe in science. If you go back to your early chemistry classes at school, you may recall chemical bonding. One atom will either lose or gain an electron, and in doing so becomes a charged ion. Opposite charges will attract, and the ions will join together to become molecules. You then have the van der Waals forces, which are the transient positive and negative charges created by the spinning of the electron around the nucleus. These are the things that hold the molecules together in their gaseous, liquid or solid state. Without those forces, we'd just be a bunch of molecules floating around in the ether. We are constantly surrounded by forces and energies which we cannot see. Astrophysicians at the moment are trying to work out why it is that the universe is heavier than it should be, given that so much of it is empty. And they're actually beginning to think that George Lucas was right and the force is real. There are thousands of people out there practicing Tai Chi and Qigong, and Chinese doctors out there who use energy, Qi energy, as a means of healing. Right, time for contentious point number 1. There is no such thing as black or white magic. Magic has no colour, it just is. The wind can either be a gentle cooling breeze in the summer, or it can be a hurricane. Water can be a bubbling stream or a deluge flood. Neither of those things have any control over what they are. They do not choose what they are. The wind does not know breeze good, hurricane bad. Water does not know stream good, flood bad. They just are. They make no choice. They have no conscience, and they make no conscious decision. And magic is exactly the same. It just is. This force, this energy that surrounds us just is. And in many ways it is the magic user, because it's not just confined to witches, but the magic user who controls the colour. And even here we could be on dodgy ground, because it could be a matter of perspective. I am a weatherwax, and I will tell it like it is. And if what you need is a kick in the pants, either metaphorical or actual, then what you'll get from me is a kick in the pants. From the outside, someone looking in might think, well, that's a really horrible thing to do. Conversely, if what you need from me is a hug and some reassurance, then what you'll get is a hug and reassurance. And again, someone on the outside might look at that and think, why are you doing that? You're making things worse. You're just mollycoddling them. So we have to be careful when it comes to good and bad and light and dark and black and white. What is more important is that you, as a magic user, are prepared to accept responsibility for the consequences of your actions. If you stand on one side of a pond and drop a pebble in, the ripples that that pebble makes will have an effect on the shoreline the other side, no matter how small, and you have to be prepared to accept the consequences of those ripples. So we have established that as a witch, I believe that there are forces and energies around us, and as a witch, I try to influence those forces and energies to achieve a particular outcome or end result. And it is there that lies the craft of the witch. It is what I do in order to achieve that end result. If you ask most people what witches do, they'll say, oh, they cast spells. And spellcrafting is one of the ways that magic users can endeavour to influence those forces. Contentious point number 2. One of the most powerful spells in the world is one that most of us probably learned as a small child, and it starts, Our Father. You may be thinking, well, that's the beginning of the Lord's Prayer, and you'd be right. And think about it. Give us this day our daily bread. We are putting our verbal energy out into the universe to ask those forces that we perceive as God to feed us. The simplest form of spellcrafting is prayer. Every time you say a prayer, whether it's in the context of a church or a temple or a mosque or just out and about, you are putting your conscious energy into the universe to ask for a particular outcome. That is the simplest kind of spell. If you go and buy yourself a spell book or a grimoire, you will often find that the spells rhyme. It isn't actually necessary, it's just that we find it easier to remember the spells if they do have some kind of rhythm or rhyme to them. Another way that I can try to influence the energies is physically. If someone comes to me with a stinking headache, I will give them a tisane of willow bark and wood betony. I am asking the chemical energy in those herbs to have an effect on the chemical energy in that person's head in order to take away the headache. In many of these spell books and grimoires, you will find that they have these beautifully written, very elaborate spells requiring you to have candles or incense or tools of some kind. And this is where we go from the craft of the witch to ritual magic. And they are different. And this is kind of taking me slightly off track, so I think that's going to be a video for another day, the difference between witchcraft and ritual magic. As I said at the beginning, there's been an awful lot of rubbish written about witchcraft over the years. Back in the days of the Spanish Inquisition and the later witch trials, witches were accused of being in cohorts with the devil. One of the myths that seems to prevail is that witches dance around fires at midnight with no drawers on, making pacts with the devil. No, that doesn't happen. For a start, I live in England and I'm not dancing anywhere with no drawers on at any time, thank you very much. It's too damn cold. But, more important than that, to quote Practical Magic, there is no devil in the craft. And here is contentious point number 3. Witchcraft does not require belief in or worship of any deity whatsoever. As a witch, we work with the forces of nature and we're very much in tune with the turning of the year and the changing of the seasons. So we work with earth and air and fire and water and sun and moon. Now, to be fair, most of us do have some form of a system, deity system that we follow, but that's primarily because it's easier for us to deal with those forces if we give them an anthropomorphic personification, so Mother Earth and the god of the air. But as for worship of them, no. To quote the wonderful Weatherwax, believing in gods is like believing in the postman. You just know they're there. So it's perfectly possible for you to have no faith whatsoever and no deity system whatsoever and still be a witch. Paganism is a belief system that is not one of the main world religions. Once upon a time it was anything that wasn't Christian, but now it's considered anything that isn't Christian, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism. So if you follow the Nordic system, or if you, like me, follow the Egyptian system or the Celtic system, then you would be considered a pagan. You can be a pagan without being a witch. You can be a witch without being a pagan. Quite often if you say to someone you're a witch, they may come back to you and say, oh, so you're a Wiccan. No, Wicca is a belief system. You can be a witch without being a Wiccan. You can be a Wiccan without being a witch. The guys who started Wicca were actually Freemasons. Wicca is a ceremonial magic system. It's very similar to Freemasonry. Now, for those people who follow Wicca, it works, and it works very well for them. But Wicca and witchcraft are not the same. So to sum it all up, what I'm really trying to say is that witchcraft is practical magic. It is what we do in order to influence the energies around us to get the outcome that we want. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. If you are going to disagree either with myself or each other, please do so in a respectful fashion. My next video will hopefully be the difference between witchcraft and ritual magic. Until then, take care. Bye.